is something we need. It's a leap of faith. Oh, if you have the will and the moment to spare, it's a beautiful world out there. It's a beautiful world out there.
This walk starts at the entrance to Dryburgh Abbey, where there is a free parking and toilets. I would recommend stopping at the Main Street Trading Company halfway round the walk in St Boswells for a coffee and a snack. Walk anywhere in the Borders and you're probably following in the footsteps of one of Scotland's most celebrated literary figures, Sir Walter Scott. He travelled widely here, writing books that would be described as bestsellers if they were published today. Yet, while everyone has heard of Sir Walter Scott, hardly anyone reads his books. The reason for this is almost certainly the somewhat impenetrable nature of the language he used. Impenetrable to non-Scots, anyway. Full of enthusiasm, people tend to pick up a copy of Waverley, published in 1814, a romantic tale of the Jacobite rebellion, then put it down in defeat after page 10. But those who persist and learn to unravel the old Scots dialect discover tales that were strongly influenced by the ballads, folklore and history of the borderlands. Tales that would have died out otherwise. Scott was the son of an Edinburgh lawyer, but spent a lot of his time in the Borders as a child, while recuperating from polio. He was fascinated by stories and ballads he had heard, and when he grew older, began to collect material that he later turned into romantic poetry. He was greatly influenced by Robert Burns and became friends with James Hogg. Scott became a barrister in 1792, but he spent his spare time writing poetry. He was appointed Sheriff Deputy of Selkirk in 1799, and in 1811 he moved to Abbotsford, a farmhouse near Melrose, where he lived for the rest of his life. He turned to novel writing, declaring that Byron beat me at poetry. It was a decision that was to make Scott a fortune, but it was also, ultimately, to cost him his health. After the publication of Waverley, he produced several more historical novels, including Rob Roy, The Heart of Midlothian and Ivanhoe. Scott didn't just write about Scottish history, however. He also played a part in it. His novels revived interest in Scottish culture at a time when it had been in danger of disappearing. In 1818 he discovered the Honours of Scotland, a crown, sword and sceptre, which had been hidden in Edinburgh Castle from the time of Charles II. And a few years later he was invited to make the arrangements for George IV's visit to Scotland. The king entered wholeheartedly into the spirit of the visit and delighted crowds by wearing a kilt with some natty pink tights. Scott should have been able to relax and live in comfort, but in 1825 his publishing house collapsed and he was left with enormous debts. His wife died in the same year. Scott worked furiously to pay off his debts, but his health suffered and in 1832 he died at Abbotsford. He is buried in the ruins of Dryburgh Abbey. Although it's unlikely Sir Walter Scott's poem Farewell to the Muse was intended to be about him, the poem certainly can express the passing of this great bard. Enchantress farewell, who so oft has decoyed me. At the close of the evening, through the woodlands to roam, where the forester lated with wonder espied me, explore the wild scenes he was quitting for home. Farewell, and that with thee thy number wild speaking, the language alternate of rapture or of woe. O none but some lover, whose heartstrings are breaking, the pang that I fell at the parting can know. Each joy though counts double, and whence there comes sorrow, or pale disappointment to darken my way. What voice was like thine that could sing of tomorrow, till forgotten in the strain was the grief of today? But when friends drop around us in life's weary waning, the grief queen of numbers thou canst not assuage, nor the gradual estrangement of those yet remaining, the languor of pain and the chillness of age. 'Twas thou that once taught me in ancients' bewailing to sing how a warrior lay stretched on the plain, and a maiden hung o'er him with aid unavailing, and held to his lips the cold goblet in vain. As vain thy enchantments, O queen of wild numbers, to a bard when the reign of his fancy is o'er, and the quick pulse of feeling in apathy slumbers. Farewell then, enchantress, I meet thee no more.